You leave on a journey one day, accompanied by a new friend. The comfort you once knew, the place you once called home, the friends you held dear to your heart, all would soon only remain as memories you hold desperately onto. The destination unknown, you begin to take your pulse, feeling your heartbeat. It's somehow calm, betraying the glimmer in your eyes as you rush into your fate. The path ahead is not only brimming with perils, but also is one not traveled much. What little you have are notes left by your mother to be in your care, one of which says, "At the netherworld's bottom, I'll be waiting." And you know that, though this is a one-way trip, it calls to you, urging you to move forward into the abyss. Made in Abyss is one of those pieces of media that I wholeheartedly believe cannot be imitated. It's on a whole other level of originality. Sure, inspiration may strike and stories similar may arise. One may even say that Made in Abyss didn't come up with the idea of having a giant hole in the planet for adventurers to explore, and while that's true, it's just a tad bit more complicated than that, isn't it? As a whole, when taking into account all of its concepts, the production, and the execution, nothing really comes close for me. When I think back on this show, naturally I remember a lot of its grotesque scenes as well as their emotional impacts on me. I remember its gleeful characters contrasting with the sheer scale and terrifying nature of the world in which they dive into, the unique and breathtaking flora and fauna adorning its biomes, the extensive lore, and, of course, the incredibly beautiful and sometimes haunting music composed by Kevin Pankin. All of this packaged into a one-of-a-kind experience. However, when rewatching the anime recently, I was struck with a sense of dread, like I was pulled down by gravity, so to speak. While I'm not a huge fan of the horror genre in general, I still love what Made in Abyss has to offer on that front. Cosmic horror, eldritch, existential dread, the fear of the unknown. These are concepts that fundamentally appeal to me in art. I've always been fascinated by them. The show makes use of those concepts so eloquently that I'm left with a lingering feeling that latches onto me even after I'm done watching. It makes me ponder often. I start to put myself into the protagonist's shoes. I imagine what it would be like to brave the abyss, to conquer the fearsome climate and face unforgiving obstacles. It scares me deeply, and it's not because of the creatures alone. It's the unknown. We all fear it one way or another. It breeds uncertainty, makes us anxious. This is, first and foremost, what I wish to explore with this video. While watching, you may have felt that way too, that lingering anxiety, even when things seem peaceful for a moment, and that our protagonists can finally catch a break. Those dangers are still lurking nearby. It's unsettling to say the least. Watching them brave the unknown, you can't help but be reminded constantly that a lack of vigilance is no longer an affordable mistake. There is also the fact that these characters are children. It's almost easy to forget with how they fit into the story flawlessly, which begs the question, why don't they feel out of place? Why isn't it breaking immersion? Well, for one, obviously, the medium tends to allow for this. Anime and manga mold itself to any topic, design, or universe. You can get away with portraying pretty much anything through art, and the only limit is your imagination and your ability to draw it. The second reason is arguably more important than the first, and it is proper character writing. What are the protagonist's purposes, their ambitions? What are their goals? What drives them to follow the path they take into what is essentially a suicide mission? Made in Abyss takes merit here through exposition. These motivations are explored abundantly. Reg, for example, seeks to discover who and what he is, having lost his memories while climbing back out of the abyss. He wants to understand the bond he has with Rico, how it ties to her mother, Lisa, and potentially uncovering much, much more. Strong as he is, the dangers of the abyss aren't so threatening to him, but responsibility falls onto him to make sure his diving partner is safe, which becomes his number one priority. Rico, on the other hand, besides her natural curiosity, seeks to follow in her mother's footsteps, to become a white whistle and one day, hopefully, reunite with her at the bottom of the abyss. However, unbeknownst to her, there are other, far more sinister reasons that motivates her deeply. In your early travels, you meet with a white whistle named Ozen, the Immovable. Though your stay within her quarters is chaotic and filled with temporary animosity, she offers to test you. After proving your courage and aptitudes, she imparts with you some of her knowledge, advice, and also her faith. She tells you about your mother, the circumstances of your birth, how actually you aren't only guided by your will to find your awaiting mother, but by primal instincts. You, child of the abyss, born in its depth, are guided not by purpose and longing alone, but by a deep attachment to the netherworld. And your mother, she is out there, certainly. After saying your farewells with the locals, you descend into the third layer, shortly followed by the fourth, where your biggest challenge yet awaits you. Arriving at the goblets of giants, Reg senses an observer, but before he can make out whom it may be, you come face to face with an orb piercer. It all went by too fast, did it not? The pain you feel is almost as unbearable as the notion that this could be the end of your journey. Giving up is inconceivable, and so with one last burst of clarity, you tactically guide your friend through the steps required to save your life, and potentially keep your arm too, before succumbing to a deep slumber. Fear not, however. A fluffy rescuer seems to have taken pity on you. I briefly spoke earlier of how careful one has to be to descend into the abyss and live to tell the story. A lack of vigilance is not a luxury these characters can afford anymore, and any lapse of judgment or mistake, whether from carelessness or oversight, will reflect that. Now, although simply a work of fiction, as the viewer, you come to understand the presented dangers and are forced to fear and respect them almost as much as the characters on screen. And that's partly because any emerging threats have real narrative repercussions. There is calculated weight to any and all decisions taken by the characters, which in turn allows us to immerse ourselves more deeply and really feel the impact of those hard-hitting scenes we all so vividly remember. Of course, let's not forget the outstanding voice acting performances as well. An actor capable of truly appropriating the persona of their role, submerging themselves into the joy, sorrow, or agony of their character, will automatically enhance a scene and intrinsically captivate the audience in the process. By itself, though, suffering isn't enough of a tool in storytelling to convey how vulnerable a character truly is. And despite Made in Abyss garnering a reputation for its usage, I think it's more multifaceted and nuanced than that. When writing a compelling narrative, one of the most important aspects of world building in a fantasy setting is to create laws for your world and make your characters abide by them. You can make anything work as long as the reasoning stays consistent. Think of it as physics in the real world. Gravity functions the same way today as it did yesterday. If your laws are well established and consistent, the gravity and urgency of any defining moment in your writing will be felt more intensely by your audience. Hazards and risks become significant, enhancing their experience and improving the way they interact with the universe and lore you crafted. Going against the boundaries you set for your world is entirely possible with proper reasoning. However, don't overdo it and make sure that any change of logic you introduce is addressed properly. It should always reflect a meaningful and rewarding plot twist. Otherwise, it feels cheap and undeserved. This is the key to an immersive experience. It's a fundamental structure that can differentiate between a good story and a masterpiece. In the case of Made in Abyss, there are many such laws, but the most prominent one would definitely be the curse of the abyss. All delvers need to know its effects and how it evolves the further down they go. Ascending from any layer will inflict a variety of different symptoms that manifest themselves more severely the deeper they are located. Nausea, headaches, hallucinations, loss of balance, bleeding, intense pain, confusion, loss of all senses. But it all pales in comparison to the grim and unforgiving affliction caused by ascending from the capital of the unreturned. For, indeed, eventually there is a point of no return.
では始めましょうか。
大丈夫だよ。私が耐えるから。だから。
she was given a blessing. Along with heightened senses, she received the gift of the abyss. In turn, cursed was Mitty to be an immortal prisoner of her own deformed flesh, now deprived of her humanity. For so long, Nanachi had yearned to deliver freedom unto her cherished friend. The days melded into each other, attempt after attempt. She idealized death, only she could never leave her precious treasure alone and defenseless. That is until Reg came along. In a difficult exchange without much deliberating, she promises to keep living so long as Mitty finds the freedom and peace she so deserves. It doesn't end here for Nanachi. Although mourning the loss of the one she held most dear to her heart, she's now at least found a new treasure. The warmth of these two may be different, but it is homely nonetheless. A new family to cherish, and a reason to keep living. This would be the start of her new life, one worth living again, as she too answers the call of the abyss. Despair is an incredible tool in storytelling, is it not? It's a negative emotion easy to empathize with. When utilized correctly, it can leave a lasting impression. Oftentimes, it is used at the crux of the plot, right before things resolve. The affected character is the vessel of that emotion in the moment, transferring their emotional weight onto us. While some of that is present in Made in Abyss, there's also a very different way despair is portrayed as well. It conceals in the background, sneaking in when it has to, deeply sunk at the core of the story. It's the intention in writing, the powerlessness we feel as we watch our trio descend, never questioning their own motives even once or having a second thought about their adventure. One can't help but feel that at any time, staying still may be better than moving forward. It is more dangerous the further down they go after all, and there is no telling what lies at the deepest reaches of this mysterious abyss. There is no assurance that what they find at the bottom will be worth their while, and once they reach it, there is no coming back. What is truly terrifying is the inevitable end. And so we watch, immersed, attentive. We watch these children on their journey, praying for their well-being where safety itself may become danger at any moment. We watch hoping for their success where the odds are overwhelmingly against them. We wish for normality where there is none. It's dreadful, haunting even. Despair is always in the background like an aura, constantly following them on their adventures. And we simply watch. This, for me, is the horrific nature of Made in Abyss. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'd like to talk about myself for a moment, if you don't mind. This video has gone very long, and it took a long time to make, and that's because I went above and beyond to compose the music you heard, giving special attention to each track. My goal was to recompose the music of Made in Abyss, doing so with respect to the original composer, Kevin Penkin, who has been such a huge inspiration for me ever since the first time I watched the anime a few years back. What I want to get at is that I have a dream, It's a recent revelation of mine as I compose, write, and edit all of these videos. I've noticed that I'm the most creative I've ever been in my entire life. Writing 9 songs for an album is a first for me, really. And then I started to understand that I really, really want to compose for cinema, TV, or even perhaps, if the chance is given to me, anime. These videos have become sort of like a resume, a portfolio of all my soundtracks that maybe one day will lend me a job in the field. And for now, I'm enjoying the process. So I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to keep making more of them. So stay tuned. The music, as usual, is available on Spotify and all other music streaming platforms. Let me know which one is your favorite. Personally, I'm really proud of Encounters, the song that you heard in the Orb Piercer scene. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for supporting my dream, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.